Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making LEDENE KOCKE, or an ice cube cake. It sounds funny, but it's a really great recipe. It's so good, it's so creamy and rich. So let's get started with the ingredients. Alright, we're going to begin with that creamy center filling. What I have here is my milk heating up with my sugar and my heavy cream. You don't have to use the heavy cream, but I do recommend using a whole milk for this recipe. I've tried doing 2% and anything less than that, it just doesn't come out the same. So I do recommend a nice whole milk for this filling. Now what I'm going to do is once that is heated through, I'm going to ladle in some of that milk with my flour, and I'm just going to whisk that until well combined. And then I'm going to take that slurry mixture and I'm going to put it back in the pan, and I'm going to cook that until I get a nice consistency, almost like vanilla pudding. And the next step is going to be to do that awesome chocolate cake on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our egg whites. I've separated my egg yolks from my egg whites. I'm going to beat that on high with my electric mixer. And then I'm going to take my sugar and I'm going to slowly incorporate my sugar with my egg whites. I'm not going to add it in all at once. I'm going to slowly do little by little. Once we have combined all of our sugar, we're going to take our egg yolks and we're going to do the same thing. One by one, we're going to incorporate our egg yolks with our egg whites. Once you've combined your egg yolks with your egg whites, our next step is going to be adding our dry ingredients. Here I have added my baking powder, and I've taken my flour and cocoa powder, I've added it together, and with a sift I'm going to slowly sift in little by little that flour mixture with my egg yolks and my egg whites. And I'm just going to fold that in gently until I've used up all of that flour and cocoa. Then we're going to get our dish ready. So I'm using a glass pan dish, I don't know what you want to call it, and I'm just going to butter the whole thing. And then I'm going to take some flour and I'm going to evenly spread out all of that flour around wherever the butter is touching. And that's just going to help us when we end up cutting the cake for it not to stick. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of patting and moving it around, and then I just take it and I put it over my sink, and as hard as I can, I pat out any excess flour. And that's what my dish looked like. No big deal if there's excess butter and flour in some parts. We're just going to then take our cake and we're going to add that evenly, spread it out, and we're going to bake this at 400 degrees until it's cooked through. Once cooked through, this is what it should look like. I made the error of letting it cool. I took it out and I just let it rest on top of my oven. Don't do that. You want to take that simple syrup, and while the cake is still hot, you want to evenly spread out that simple syrup because it's going to absorb much quicker. I let my cake cool and then it took a lot longer for it to absorb that simple syrup. So now you guys are going to see I'm taking a toothpick and I'm just dabbing at that cake so that that simple syrup can get in every nook and cranny of that cake. This would have been much easier if I did it as a hot cake, but unfortunately I totally forgot, so that's the end result. So if you do the same thing as me, just take a toothpick and dab at the cake, no big deal. Alright, so by now your cream filling should be cool. What I'm going to do is I'm taking my electric mixer and I'm going to slowly start incorporating my 2 sticks of butter, yep, 2 sticks, into the cream filling. I'm not adding it all at once because I don't want chunks of butter, so I'm just adding like 2 to 3 pieces at a time, mixing, adding 2 to 3 pieces until I've used up all of my butter. Alright guys, so the next step is going to be to take that creamy mixture that we've combined with the butter and we're going to put it on top of that chocolate cake. Now if you've been following me and watching my videos, you know that there's usually always a really important step. Well, this is it. What we're going to do is we're going to take that creamy filling, put it on top of the chocolate cake, and then the most important part of this recipe is we're going to let that chill in the refrigerator uncovered 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, but we need to let this chill and set for a good amount of time. The reason why is because we're then going to add a chocolate ganache on top. If we were to take that chocolate ganache and add it directly on top of this kind of soft filling, it would mix in together and then we wouldn't get that chocolate cream chocolate look when we cut into the cake, and that's what we're looking for. So we need to let this sit, rest in the fridge at least 2 hours. And now the ganache. So if you've never made ganache before, it's super easy. You're just going to heat up your heavy cream until you start to see it bubbling and it's heated through. We're going to turn off that oven and we're going to add that heavy cream to our chocolate. And then I'm going to tell you guys about the chocolate. So every chocolate is different. Last time I used it, it came out thicker. This time it came out thinner. What you're going to do is you're going to take that heavy cream and chocolate and you're going to start whisking it until well combined. Once it's well combined and while the heavy cream is hot, you guys are then going to take some more chocolate and slowly, gradually add in those chocolate chunks until you get the consistency you like. Now, personally, I like a ganache that's a little bit thicker. Some people like it thin. It's up to you. You'll see throughout the video, I think in total I add 6 more cubes of chocolate while it's still hot. It came out a little thinner than I expected, but that's okay. It still came out delicious. So just make sure while the heavy cream is hot, you add as much chocolate as you want. Like I said, some people like more, some people like less. It's up to you. What I'm doing here is I'm just testing out that ganache to see if it's good enough for my cake. And what I mean by good enough is if I were to put it on the cake, is it going to even set? And it is, because by looking at that spoon and moving it back and forth, I noticed that there was no drippage, nothing was coming off of the spoon. So I'm just going to take that and I'm going to put it all over my cake. And we are towards the end. Now it's up to you if you want to decorate or not decorate. Traditionally, this cake, they don't decorate, they just leave it with the chocolate on top. And traditionally, they don't use that chocolate ganache. The reason I do chocolate ganache on this cake is because they do in the traditional recipe a chocolate and oil mixture, and it does give you that chocolate, but unfortunately I feel like when you press down to cut open that cake, it's not a smooth transition, so you're like pounding down with your fork to get a piece of that cake, but you can't get to that cake because the chocolate is pretty stiff. So that's why I like that ganache. It just gives it a creamy extra texture to match with that creamy white filling. And I've just decorated it with some chocolate covered strawberries, and I don't know what these are called. They're like chocolate straws that I just found at my local supermarket. I thought it was cute because it's a black and white cake, so they're black and white straws. But that's all I did really for decorating. I'm gonna let this sit in my fridge overnight. Right, and the next day I cut open my cake and I was so excited to try it. I think it was like 6 in the morning when I cut this open, so really nutritious breakfast. You guys can see that bottom layer is really delicious. It's not dry because we added that simple syrup, and that's why I love using the glass pans that I did in this video, is because I'm able to see that that cake absorbed without me adding too much of that simple syrup. And that's why I love doing that butter and flour mixture throughout the pan, because the cake ended up not sticking, so I was able to kind of lift it up and see if everything was absorbed, if the center had enough of that simple syrup. The filling on the inside, that white creamy filling, I mean, it's so delicious, it's so easy, and it's things you always have in your household: butter, flour, milk. You don't have to use the vanilla extract. You can even use those vanilla sugar packets that you can get at an international market. That's what they traditionally use for the recipe, and it comes out phenomenal too. And then the chocolate ganache. It did come out a little thinner than my previous, times making this recipe, but that's totally okay. It came out delicious. My family loved it, and I'm sure yours will too. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, add me on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.